Alrighty, so what I wanted to do today is I kind of wanted to talk more about the game in particular and the kind of specific mechanics of it and my hopes for what it will become. Eventually, once I get some of the stuff more ironed out, I will be uploading a video of doing like a test play with it. But for now, we're just kind of work through where it's at now, what I think about it. So I just used 2 pages of blank. All the art is done by me. So like, I drew this, not specifically for the book, but just art I've done over the years. So obviously this needs to be fixed. And I don't think I'll use this image again, or I need to find a higher quality image of this drawing because it's a little fuzzy. But basically, you have the introduction and the gameplay, and I think, well, you'll hear this kind of a lot, is I need to really flesh out what's going on. But basically, you play with 3 6-sided die. And the reason for that is it makes like a normal distribution of chance. So like, basically, you know, here would be like 18 and here would be 0. So like most of your rolls are going to end up in this like average zone. So that way then like the character's individual skills like matter more and affect more things versus just like kind of luck of the draw with a roll. Cause like with the D20, you know, like everything has an equal shot. So with this, it's more just like your skills, your character's skills are the most impactful part of the gameplay. My idea with this too was, again, to have different, you know, obviously different breeds of horses, but I also wanted to include like fantasy themed, like equines, so like, you know, unicorns, Pegasus, and also include other animals in the equine family. That's why it's called Equidae. So like zebras, donkeys, mules, even some like extinct species, just to try and create a lot of different options, I guess. So this is more where I talk about the role system and the different effects that it has on the gameplay, like different types of failures that can happen. And what that means. So generally speaking, like the flow of the game is mostly like you're either in training or you're in competition. And that's kind of like, so the game doesn't really have like a combat system because that's not how it's meant to be played. Although you could add it to, I guess, if you wanted. But yeah, so you're either training a horse or you're showing a horse, basically, are the main like 2 mechanics of the game. So these types of things, like you make these rolls a lot in trying to complete like certain tasks, like go over a jump or have the horse do like a certain action or whatever. So that's kind of what goes through, and then both characters need to make a check. So the human trainer or rider or whatever needs to make a check, and then the horse character also would need to make a check. I've already changed this in what I'm writing up on in the new thing. I added dexterity as an attribute, but then the 2 things, so this is kind of like basic, what you normally expect. The only thing is I did not add strength as an attribute. Strength is a skill, and it's primarily affected by the constitution attribute. So if the character has a low constitution attribute, they have a low cap on how far they can develop the strength skill. If they have a higher constitution, they have a higher cap on how far they can develop it. And then the 2 things that the equine characters have in addition to this are these 2 other attributes called speed and bulk. And basically this affects like the type of task the equines are good at. So obviously like a horse with higher bulk is going to be something like your draft horse that's going to like pull logs, pull heavy stuff, carry heavy stuff, that type of thing. And then the horse with a lot of speed is going to be like, you know, like a race horse or like something like that. And these two are mutually exclusive. You can't have high bulk and high speed. So you do have to kind of pick the specialty here. So in each different breed, this is the other thing I've struggled with, is because like there's a ton of horse breeds. So I can't totally include them all. So my thought was to basically make 5 breed groups, basically heavy, medium, light, pony, and then miniature. And then basically just that's like your breed group that you pick, and they have various different traits, and then kind of go from there. But then I also feel like that's not enough, I don't know, like ideas or content. So maybe I'll do like breed groups and then like a selection of breeds under each breed group, and then maybe that helps a little bit. I don't know. I also have this thing for skills. So the skills are weighted. I want them to be weighted. So basically if you look here, and I've already kind of started on redoing this, so this is not going to be the same in the original. And I also just don't like how this looks in general. Like this looks, how I formatted this was like kind of bad and really tacky, and it just doesn't look, it looks very homemade. It doesn't look very professional in my opinion. So I'll be adjusting that too. But basically, so like you see like this strength skill for horses, it's affected by the constitution and bulk, which means that this attribute score is given more weight into how it affects the skill than the bulk score is. So it so that kind of makes things a little bit more interesting with like how the attributes actually affect the development of skills and like skill checks and stuff like that. Also, the game has a level cap for the human and equine characters, and I'm not sure if I'm going to keep it. I kind of like the idea of it, but we'll see how it goes. Basically, you've got green, beginner, intermediate, advanced, seasoned, and those come with respective modifiers. Like obviously, the less experienced you are, like the more you're going to mess stuff up, and the more experienced you are, the less you're going to mess stuff up. That's basically the idea that I try to make things a little bit more interesting with, and frankly a little bit more difficult, like in the early game, make it more challenging, I suppose. And the other thing I have that I wanted to spend a lot of time on, and that I'm going to spend more time on, are personality traits. So the human and equine characters each have personality traits. There are some traits that are only for humans, there are some traits that are only for equines, and then there are some traits that are shared between them. And there are some permanent traits and some temporary traits. And these affect how characters interact. So basically, if you have a personality trait in your human character, let's say of leader, and the horse they're working with has a personality trait of follower, that's going to work pretty well because the horse is naturally going to want to follow the leader, right? But if you have like both characters have a leadership trait, that's going to cause a clash, and that's going to make it more difficult for them to actually be successful in training and in showing. So stuff like that. And then like you have these temporary traits like timid, like perhaps like you get a character that in the beginning, like maybe you want them to be super timid, but then kind of grow in confidence. And then the temporary traits, there's a number of times you have to like perform an action that would affect that character trait that would eventually make it go away. There's also in regards to that, there's this trait of wild. So basically, if you have like Mustangs or whatever, like they're gonna come with this wild trait, and it's just gonna make it really hard to train. But eventually, they can gain the tamed trait. Additionally, there's also traits that affect their constitution or likelihood to get injured or sick. So like, hot-headed, right? They're gonna have more prone to like potential injuries because they're gonna be hot-headed about things. like a picky, let's see, I have it here. Yeah, picky. They're gonna be super picky about like what they eat and whatever. And so they have like -1 to constitution checks if eaten something out of the ordinary, so like something they didn't want, they have an upset stomach or whatever. So stuff like that I thought might add some interesting mechanics to it. And then this was really the only section of the book I got a lot of feedback on with people who I had tested out a little bit. And the basic feedback was that they got sick and injured too often. So I have to kind of adjust that. But basically I wanted a mechanic for like, for example, if you fail an action, there's a chance for an injury. So example, like if you roll to go over a jump and you fail, depending on how bad that failure is, like there's a potential injury attached to that. And then there's also like, oh god, I gave examples of like different types of illnesses and injuries that can potentially happen. So, and some of them are affected by the horse's environment. And then there are also these like other medical traits, so like easily sunburned, like that's gonna be like a potential issue for some situations, and just stuff like that to add more flavor, I guess. But I need to revamp this because, like I said, the feedback I got was that they got sick and injured too often, so I gotta probably adjust that, make it a little more difficult to get hurt and sick so people can actually enjoy the game. The other part of this personality system I had was this mood and stress system. So basically the characters' moods will affect how they perform, and how they perform will also affect their mood. So, and there's personality traits that go with this too. So basically like, let's see. So like, okay, so confident. They have a bonus when doing anything regarding to like a like stage fright check, like in a competition. They're not going to be rattled. Impatient is you get a negative buff to like getting potentially frustrated during training or a show. So basically, these are the different moods and these are the different effects. So if the mood is low, you're more likely to fail checks. If the mood is high, you're more likely to succeed in checks. And then there's also different mood modifiers that can be the result of things like the weather, or if they won or lost a show, or there's a simple kind of barter system in here for the human characters for like various different things. So if they feel like they got a good deal, there's probably gonna be one if they feel like they got ripped off. And your frustration builds up based on the number of failures that have occurred. So if you continue to fail, you continue to have a higher chance of getting frustrated. And then once you are frustrated, that's like the biggest debuff, and you're not gonna do super well. So that's kind of, I gotta flesh it out. I gotta add like what happens at frustration. Again, it's kind of mimicking my own experience with this. And then I've also have different weather effects, again, that I have to flesh out. So like for horses that live outside, if it's icy, they're going to be more likely to come in with injuries, minor injuries like sore or whatever. If there's a thunderstorm, maybe they're more likely to spook, that type of thing, very hot, that type of stuff, just to add more interesting stuff to happen. And then the final part of this personality mood stress system is the relationship system. So when characters first interact, they do a relationship check, and different traits affect kind of and where they start on this thing: hates, dislikes, wary, neutral, somewhat trusts, likes, loves. So obviously if you have a human character and a horse that hate each other, they're not going to perform well together, they're not going to do well together, it's just going to be like bleh. Versus a good relationship, and the relationship is built or broken down based on like the failures together, and then like personality, and then length of time that they know each other. And again, I have to flesh this out because I didn't kind of write down here. And then finally we have accomplishments, which can be picked at level 1 if you have a wisdom score of 15 or higher, and then if not, then you get one at level 2, level 4, and then after the max level you can choose an accomplishment every time 2 skills are leveled up. So there's like different things that help improve showing and training for both people and horses. So, and this again, you see all my notes over this side, we have to adjust. There's an option for random events. This was kind of an afterthought when I did this time. I've got to add more stuff of what random events can happen. And then this was just character creation. So basically the process is you create the barn manager, and then the barn, and then the equines themselves, and there's different like levels of like where you capacity for the barns where you start at, depending on the attributes of the barn manager and various other options that you can choose. And then there's like different aspects of like, okay, if they're kept in a stall, these are some things that can happen to them. If they're kept in pasture, there's some other things that can happen to them. And then I need to flesh out like the basic process for like making NPCs quickly without having to go nuts. But basically you have, each day has like some daily business, so you got to take care of the daily business of the barn, the expenses, whatever, cleaning, blah blah blah. So you have like time in the day that you need to spend on either the daily business, the training, or the showing. And then a little bit about like how the sales and economy works, which I also need to flesh this out. There's various different business ideas. This is all garbage. This goes through types of training that you can do, and then like how the training session would work, and likewise how the show would work as well, where certain checks should be. And again, this is part of where I'm thinking I need to maybe change some things, because I don't think it flows very well, but I'm gonna have to like play it through with someone to see. Pay no mind to any of this. All of this needs to be changed. All of this needs to be revamped. This is garbage. And then the last bit here is basically the genetics and breeding. So obviously trying to create a line of champions, right? So we just go through like how like the length of gestation for them, the and how that corresponds to game time, the conception chances, complications, and then how certain things are passed on. So like you can actually breed for like improved attributes, improved conformation, good or bad personality traits, what the horse looks like, the color, their markings, stuff like that. And I don't like how this is set up. So I will be changing it. And then just various examples of different things that can happen. And again, see, we have all these different types. This is all horrible. I'm looking over it again like, whoa, I need to really change it and flesh like all this stuff out. And then the character sheets. So, yeah, so that's that. And that's what I'm going to be working on. I don't know if I'm going to like film myself working on it because it's literally just going to be me in front of a computer typing away, but I'll definitely still continue to try and document my process in designing the art for the game, and trying to create like a uniform style, because like none of this artwork is uniform. Like we've got pen here, we got pencil, we got watercolor, there was a collage in here at some point. Nothing makes sense. So we're gonna try and make it make sense. Anywho, thanks for listening, and I'll see you later.